Okay, last area that I know a lot of you are waiting for, and that is the budget, right? We're always looking for ways to save on food. So a couple tips to help bring costs down as much as we can. Coupons, yes, they are still a thing. I remember when we used to clip coupons out of the paper every week. Now, those still exist, but many times now you can find coupons easily online on your phone. Again, there's more apps and things like that for coupons. But really, bottom line, don't overlook saving a dollar here and there. It's going to add up. And then compare between stores if you can. If you have multiple places to shop where you are, do some price comparisons to see which place makes the best sense for you. If you have the ability to shop at different places for different things, go for it. Just be sure that it makes sense in the big picture, right? Sometimes saving 10 cents by driving another 20 minutes doesn't save in the long run, right? So just be mindful as you think about where to go, but don't be afraid to compare. Buying in bulk is another option. If you use similar ingredients in many meals, consider buying in bulk. So things that have a longer shelf life, your pastas, your rice, those canned and frozen foods are a great thing to buy in bulk if you're able to, and if you have the storage space. Places like Costco offer the ability to buy larger quantities. It typically is cheaper than the smaller packaging. Now, I'd still urge you to compare the unit price, which you can see I gave an example here, to make sure that you're actually saving money on that. Because sometimes they trick you. They say, oh, more, here it is. But sometimes the price per unit, sometimes it's per ounce, sometimes it's per bottle, whatever it may be. Make sure that that is cheaper as well. So something to be mindful of there. But again, most of the time you can save money in the long run if you buy those items that you use a lot in bulk. And again, if you're able to store them, that's the biggest thing too. Next thing is buying generic. Generic brands are a lot of times cheaper than name brands, and most of these foods are identical as the name brand, and they have to go through the same quality testing as the name brands and are even made a lot of times in the same factories as the name brands. Compare the prices and the ingredient list to see when it might make sense to go generic, right? Just make sure that ingredient specifically and they didn't sneak in any extra processed foods or chemicals. If you're concerned, do some research about the brand to kind of see what you can find out. Lots of reviews, lots of things out there on a lot of different brands. And then also when you're in the aisle, look up and down. A lot of times they have the trendier or the name brands at eye level. So look up at the top row, look up at the bottom, look down at the bottom row to see different brands, and then do your comparing of the ingredient lists and things from there. Next, let's talk about seasonal foods. All right, seasonal foods are a big one with your fruits and veggies and other produce, right? Buying fruits and veggies in season can save you a good chunk of money as they're usually cheaper when they can be found locally, right? They taste better usually, and they're usually more nutrient dense. Now, some of us, we can't get fresh produce all year long, right? So take advantage when you can. Farmers markets are a great way to get fresh produce and support your local farmer as well. Quick internet search for seasonal food guide will give you some great resources to find what's in season in your state and when. If you have foods that you want to eat year round, frozen is a great option for quality. I'll mention this again. It's typically frozen at the peak of nutrition. So I talked about frozen. Again, check that label to be sure that it's, again, only the food and not some other processed ingredients in it if you can. Canned is still fine too. Canned fruits and veggies are still a better choice than a lot of other things, right? So don't worry about that if that's your only option. And again, you can keep that for a long time most of the time. It's just more common for those to have some of those extra ingredients and chemicals to help keep them shelf stable. So just again, do some label reading there as well. Do what you can. But again, if you're buying a canned green beans versus a candy bar, we're still right. We're still good, right? When it comes to fresh produce, I know a big barrier and argument that we hear is that it goes bad quickly, right? And yes, food without a bunch of preservatives does go bad more quickly than something that's going to be boxed or canned. But there are ways to make your fresh produce last longer. First, plan for it too. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if you know you're going to buy fruits and veggies, make sure you've got a plan and know which ones typically don't last as long. Apples usually last longer, right? So put that later in the week. Whereas depending on what color your bananas are, if you buy really green ones, right, they might last a little longer. If not, it might only be a couple days. Same with your berries and things like that. But a couple other things that you can do to make your fresh produce last longer. Quick internet search is going to give you lots of resources, but I did want to give you just a couple examples. This is from the Child and Adult Care Food Program website. I put their search. If you just do a search for selecting and storing fresh produce, CACFP, it's going to give you the exact website and article that I used for this. So a couple examples that of food that goes bad fairly quick or that we think does, right? Peaches and pears. So if they're underripe, we store them at room temperature until they're ripe. Then you can move them to the fridge. But you want to store them away from fruits that are sensitive to ethylene gases because peaches, pears, and apples actually all produce ethylene gas as they ripen, which can affect the quality of those other ethylene sensitive fruits, like your strawberries, blueberries, raspberries specifically. Um, Berries should be stored in a low humidity section of the fridge with some ventilation. Vinegar bath for a minute for blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries can help remove tiny mold spores and help extend the life of those berries. Be sure to rinse with water and thoroughly dry before storing. Raspberries, from my research, can be just washed in plain water generally. Again, there's a bunch more on that site, and I'm sure there's lots of other sites with quality information. So take a look, help make that fresh stuff last longer. Now, if you really want to be ambitious, think about doing some research on canning your own foods, buying fresh or growing your own garden even, and then canning those foods is a fantastic way to be sustainable and to have foods in storage ready for whatever comes our way. All right, we covered a lot today, so wrapping it up here, planning ahead before you go to the store can save you lots of time, lots of headaches, lots of money, right? Take time to read labels, compare prices, compare quality, those types of things, and just shop smart. Look for healthier options when you can. Do the best that you can. You're not always going to be able to make the quote unquote healthiest choice, and that's okay. But if you can do that more often than not, it's going to help you overall. Your nutrition is so important to your overall health, so make it count when you can.